Hi, I'm Sharella, and this is the course Finding Yourself After Overgiving to Those in Your Care. Maybe you've been a stay at home mom without much of a chance in the outside workforce, and you've become a pushover in the grind of the care of house, home, and family, not even knowing your own preferences and desires. Perhaps you've worked for a company that has sapped you dry in your endless overtime and pandering to your boss's wishes, and not ever your own. Unfortunately, an indicator of the perfect student of this course is the one who simply doesn't know they need it. They have been pulled under by life and are simply holding their breath or sludging along in numbness. And that is why I believe if you found this course and you've lost yourself in life, I am here for you at the perfect place and time to reclaim your true self. You will be able to master your life by prioritizing relationships, making wise decisions, and make good on your personal and professional goals, resulting in true joy. I find the biggest challenge for those who need my course is freeing up enough time for themselves to learn what it will take to make time work perfectly for them. So I ask of you one thing: to devote 15 minutes at a time, whether per day or per week, to receiving and applying each section of this class into your life. Whether you see it or not, you owe it to yourself. Also note, this course is part of a 12-class learning experience about strengthening your marriage called the Love Zone Marriage, and this course is fundamental in this concept. To have a we, there must be a me. Thank you for your interest, your investment in yourself, and I hope to see you in my other classes. The story is told of an earthquake that hit Armenia in 1989, killing 30,000 people in 4 minutes. Buildings all around had collapsed, and those inside were presumed dead. One particular father had told his school-age son, "No matter what, I'll always be there for you." The father went in search of his son, but the school was a pile of rubble. He found the approximate area of his son's classroom and began digging, brick by brick. Police and firemen and authorities warned him of fires and explosions and urged him to leave the search to the emergency crews, but he tenaciously carried on digging. Night came and went. 12 hours had passed, 24 hours, 36 hours passed, and still little hope of finding his son remained. At the 38th hour, he thought he heard his son's voice. "Armand," he called. The reply, "Dad, it's me." He had survived in a triangular wedge. Armand replied to his dad, "I knew if you were still alive, you'd be there for me, like you always said." I'm Sharella, mother of 4 and wife of 25 plus years. I've been an ardent student of personal self-development. I delight in my role as teacher and mentor. So I ask you, do you feel you are important enough for you to search for you? Will you always be there for you? Will you uncover yourself brick by brick to rediscover your true self? Yes, you've been there for others, faithfully and devotedly. But I believe part of the equation of truly being there for others authentically is being there for yourself, especially if you've overgiven and harbor unhealthy emotions as a result. So I'd like you to do one thing now. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a few deep breaths and anchor your feet into the earth or whatever surface is below you. Now ask your inner self one simple question. What do I desperately need for myself in my life right now? It may be a word, a statement, a feeling, an image. Whatever it is, go with it. Embrace it. Feel what it feels like to have this in the way that feels perfectly right for you. As you go through this course, keep that thought, word, or image in your mind of what you feel you need right now to be more true to yourself, so you can truly be yourself for others and for God. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy this course. Hello, this is Finding Yourself After Overgiving, and I am Sharella. We're going to go through 6 sections of this class. First, 3 pillars of overgiving. Second, stepping out of victimhood. Third, people-pleasing to self-fullness. 4, the story of you. Fifth, be a creator, and we'll talk about the willow worker. And 6th, meeting tenacity, your grid. So to begin with the 3 pillars, I think that I qualify for being someone who can teach about having lost yourself. Listen to some of the actions that I've done. I have taken the worst produce at the grocery store so that other people could get better. I've weeded neighbors' lawns without anyone knowing when my own lawn was loaded with weeds. I have consistently been last at the end of the cookie line so other people could get what cookies they wanted, and I would be happy with whatever's left, even if it's raisin oatmeal. And I've not known what to get off a menu at a restaurant because either it was too expensive or unhealthy or something I really wanted, which probably meant I shouldn't have it. I have this decorative block that says freedom above my stove where I cook. You can see some of the splatters from my cooking on the front of it. And my friend gave this to me several years ago, and I just love it and look at it every day. And it represents the first stirrings I had that were a deep desire for freedom that I didn't feel like I was feeling. I knew that I had agency, but I was not feeling the freedom that I was hoping for. Here's some more losing actions that I have done. I have packed for camping trips all the food, all the equipment for my family, not realizing I didn't like to take these trips at all. I would not pick a movie or a song that I wanted to watch or listen to for years and years. And then I would be physically intimate with my husband when I didn't want to, much of our marriage. And then I would secretly do anything I really wanted to while I was hiding, like binging chocolate while reading romance mystery books. So now it's time for you to take a quiz. This is your Finding Yourself scenarios. See where you are in these scenarios. Here's the first one. Ready? Okay, you're carrying a heavy load and you start to go uphill. Do you A, push harder? I can do hard things. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. B, give up, lay down, hope someone has mercy on you. Help, does someone have a stretcher? C, slow down and take breaks as needed. The hill will wait. Or D, something else. It really is my choice to do whatever I want. Here's the next scenario. You've been asked to bring dinner to someone who just had surgery, but you are worthy of needing surgery yourself. Do you A, say yes and push through and do it anyway? I'll be blessed or rewarded somewhere down the road. B, tell them, heck no. I have my rights and I'll be assertive or aggressive. C, tell them, I'm not at a place to be able to do that right now, but I'd be happy to help another time or in a different way. Or D, something else. It really is my choice to do whatever I want. Your child has been assigned to do the dishes and they are dragging their feet. Does that sound familiar? Do you A, do the dishes for them? They've had a long day. I will do this out of love for them, even though I've had a long day too. B, stew in your resentfulness until you explode and they quickly rush to do the dishes to avoid your wrath. Wow, mom is on one today. C, firmly but lovingly insist they do the dishes or they don't get privileges with a time to have it done by. Or D, something else. It really is my choice. Last scenario. Your husband complains he's doing more of the household work than you, but you are becoming exhausted. Do you A. Tell him you'll pick up your pace. I really should work more for the roof over my head. B. Cry, pout, and act like a victim. After all the work I've done for you all these years. C. Kindly tell him if he can't handle what he's doing to choose to do something different or not at all. There's no shame in hiring it out or downsizing or reprioritizing. Or D. Something else. It really is my choice to do whatever I want. All of these scenarios mentioned that you could do something else as option D because we get pigeonholed into thinking there's no choice to do than exactly what we've already been doing. Each of these answers has a degree of validity to them, and as you become more personally empowered, more assertive, and more loving yourself, your truth will become obvious. Your inner voice and the voice of the Spirit can tell you exactly what to do in each of these scenarios. Do you remember that Disney movie Tangled? Well, call me Rapunzel. When I first watched Tangled with my kids, I had the distinct impression my life was much like the long-haired princess, stuck in a tower, knowing nothing different, being traumatized by her mother witch, yet enjoying her days with things that fill it. The words to this song explained my life. And so I'll read a book, or maybe two or three. I'll add a few new paintings to my gallery. I'll play guitar and knit and cook and basically just wonder, when will my life begin? One might say, gee, Rapunzel has really got it made. She can do whatever she wants all day. Who would want to leave her tower? Though you could call my life pleasant, here were the unpleasantries. I was afraid to go out of the house. You never know what bad guy was around the corner. Imagine Rapunzel brandishing her cast iron skillet. I wouldn't go 20 miles away from home without feeling panicky. Hence, I never went very far alone. Because of social anxiety, I hid myself in my cozy, perfect bedroom. I didn't feel free to simply enjoy a carefree experience. My responsibility was to my kids, and it seemed my husband wanted me there and available. Imagine my surprise when a new friend with an outside perspective called me out on my hermit codependent existence. This friend, Mary, was going through a divorce. She said she'd never felt freer, that she did what she wanted when she wanted, with 4 kids under the age of 7. And why didn't I feel I could? I actually felt horror at the idea of taking the getaway she recommended, going away by myself for a weekend, and envied her free spirit to do as she wished. I realized my tower activities simply kept me busy and engaged to fill my life with something. I also came to realize I didn't believe God would have me live this tower existence with meaningless fillers. Walter Scott said, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." Something was off, and I knew I wasn't being true to myself. I asked God what to do instead of my cooking, crocheting, and concocting. He said, "You have to figure that out yourself." So I dropped everything I loved: bread baking, yogurt making, scrapbooking, volleyball, music writing, cake creating, and canning. I left the tower. I opened a space for new life, forward growth, and much belated light. So let's talk about the 3 pillars in overcoming overgiving. First of all, detaching with love. 2, boundaries. And 3, self-care. So the first one, detaching with love. My solution to this is to give up unhealthy pride, the kind of pride that is not serving you. So detach in order to separate and amplify you in your space. 2, with love so it won't be harsh to others. 3, giving up pride is to relinquish what has kept you where you are, though it has been a protection and has served you. 4, Giving up pride is to make room for humility in being who you really are, despite those who seem to hold you to a certain standard, including damaged parts of you that like you where you are. And 5, giving up pride because using love in the process is opposite of the hate included in pride in its very definition of enmity. The second point, boundaries, is to give up people pleasing. We'll talk a lot more about boundaries in another class. But to give up people pleasing, the boundaries that you create delineate where you start and end. When they've been mixed and blurred, you don't know what is yours. Hence, you have little self-identity. Boundaries because those with real love want to see you in your best representation of you. Give up people pleasing because you won't have boundaries if you are caring only pleasing others and not taking care of yourself. 4, if you don't know how to please yourself by knowing your own parameters, you really can't truly please others. And lastly, while you are detaching with love to find yourself, you need that energy and discovery for you, which has been lacking and needs some soul attention, finally. And then third, my point for self-care is to give up control. So, self-care because detaching with love and boundaries sets you up for being able to love yourself, one of the pieces of the love yourself and others equation. Self-care because if you don't do it, no one else will really know how to do it for you. Give up control because when you are controlling what you shouldn't continually. So you're still going to have a degree of control, but you're going to give up a lot of that, of knowing what's going on everywhere with everybody. And if you're continually reaching outside yourself, it's hard to let down your guard. Give up control to see where your boundaries and self really start and end. And give up control to find a measure of freedom, faith, and surrender support. So there's 2 cups we can live by. We have the cup of overwhelm. This cup is full of your not being able to catch up with life. You just keep filling it and filling it, and it starts to spill over with worms, acidic, yucky worms that are not serving you and not serving those who you care for. This is the cup of overwhelm. How many people do you know that have these worms spilling out in this cup that they just can't manage? Then there's this lovely cup of love that has little hearts bubbling out of it. And this is from people who have taken care of themselves. They have detached with love, found the boundaries that work for them, and taken care of themselves so that they can give that love that's pouring out. Jesus Christ was self-full. He is a great example to us. He was full enough to have plenty to give. And though he didn't have a lot by world standards, he had enough. And we'll talk more about self-full in another class as well. If you imagine a pot or a vase that's tipped over, no matter how much good you try to pour into it, it can't contain anything that's poured into it if it's tipped over. If it's not being taken care of, then you can't even contain whatever is good that might be put into it. So taking care of yourself is crucial to finding yourself. So that is the end of the first section, the 3 pillars. The next section is stepping out of victimhood. So I'll see you in the next section. Hi, I'm Sharella. This is part 2 of Finding Yourself After Overgiving. This section is stepping out of victimhood. A victim is a person who feels they have no power. They are at the mercy of people who are more powerful than they are and who have control over the victim's life. Let me tell you about the victim, Lisa. Lisa was a nurse. Everything was everyone else's fault. The doctors were to blame when she couldn't get things right at work. The patients caused her sour mood. It couldn't be helped. She'd go out with her friends and tell them how unfair and hard her life was for her. If they only could understand how hard she had it. And her husband and children weren't supportive. She'd come home and take care of everyone's problems and messes. How was a woman supposed to live like this? Poor Lisa. Do you know of someone like this? Does this sound like you? Well, let's look at the anti-responsibility list that 99% of us fall into this category. Blaming, rationalizing, justifying, minimizing and trivializing, fleeing from responsibility, hiding, denying, rebelling, complaining, finding fault, making demands, doubting, losing hope, quitting, indulging in self-pity, being indecisive, procrastinating, allowing fear to rule, enabling. It's really hard to find joy yourself and find yourself if you're not taking accountability and responsibility. The victim mindset dilutes the human potential. By not accepting personal responsibility for our circumstances, we greatly reduce our power to change them. That's from Steve Maraboli. So let's talk about how to step out of the victim role so we can claim our power. First of all, we need to make a choice to be a victor, to be victorious. Second of all, identify where you have power. So in the first section, we talked about how if you can give up control, you're able to find yourself. Well, that is the control where you really don't have control. And when you can figure out where you do, then you can have the power that you need for you. So let go where you don't have power. That's a very fine line to be able to straddle and know where you really have power and where you don't. And then finally, take action where you have power. That is the definition of empowerment. And then you can go around that cycle again of the 4 points we just said. Make a choice to be a victor, identify where you have power, let go of where you don't have power, take action where you have power, and so forth, claiming further empowerment in your life. So what can help us step out of victim mode? And I just want to mention that I will talk more in another class about the scale of 3s in relation to surviving, to striving, to thriving. So we'll talk more about that. But as we talk about stepping out of victim mode, well, first of all, make the shift to have an attitude of gratitude. Melody Beattie of Codependent No More says, gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. They say that gratitude is of the greatest of virtues. And when you can flip from an attitude of victimhood into an attitude of gratitude, everything changes. You feel that empowerment. So another thing to do is reframe the way you look at your life. Even make a list. What is draining you? And what is energizing you? When you look at that list, that's your inner voice telling you what's draining and what's energizing you is telling you where you can take control of something and make that more of a place of power, and to drop those things that are not powerful to you so that you can find yourself and step out of that victimhood. Don't let who you were talk you out of who you're becoming. And then we'll talk much more about this in another class, but master your thoughts. The first step of mastering your thoughts is crucial, and it's to become aware of your thoughts. How many of us go through the day and just have these thoughts that beat us up and put us down and create the victim mindset? And I have several techniques that I use to master my thoughts before I go to sleep at night. If you can contain them and realize what they are and then change them to work for you, you leave the victim mindset and then start to become more of a master, and you change them to what you want. For so long, I just had the worst thoughts going through my head and didn't even think of it, didn't even know that it was happening because it was such a habit. Now that I've mastered my thoughts, I go to sleep so happy and I wake up even happier. So another thing to do is to visualize. Sit with yourself, close your eyes, and start to visualize the healthy and happy you. What would your life look like? How will you act? How will you dress? How will you be? Open your heart. How does it feel? If you've heard of vision boards, I've done vision boards for a long time, both in a frame that had the pictures of what I wanted to see and be eventually, and then I put it on my phone, and I totally get into that space of what it is, because your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and fiction. And so if you can just visualize it, it starts to bring to pass what you're actually seeing. You don't even need to have some of the things, but you feel like you're there. So visualize what you want and step out of that victimhood by taking accountability for what you really do want. Get moving. I talk to so many ladies who just don't have time for exercise, and they don't realize the benefits of that oxygenation and the moving your body. And during the 30 minutes that I dedicate to myself for exercise on most days, that is a time where I am not going to be a victim, because I am taking accountability and moving. I am the master of what I am thinking and doing during that time of exercise. It's really hard to be a victim when you're actually moving and doing something that feels so good and then stays with you throughout the day. Also, to develop a creator mindset. We'll talk about this in another section in this class. And to be a creator is godlike. It's moving towards being more like our heavenly parents. And so if you can get out of being beat up by being a victim to being a creator, you leave behind victimhood. And then something I'd like to just briefly touch on is perfectionism. I thought perfectionism was a good thing. Isn't that right? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. But I grew up with this idea that my siblings and I decided that someone must have taught us in Sunday school at church, because we had this idea that 3 strikes you're out. You can only make 3 mistakes and be forgiven 3 times by God. And after that, you're out. Pretty much you're in hell. So the first time you mess up, have a mistake, well, you're pretty close to doing it again. So then the second time, we're imperfect. So you're probably going to do it 3 times and then you're out. And so this led me to have a perfectionistic mindset of I couldn't do wrong. I couldn't fail. I couldn't make a mistake, because then I might be in hell. So I took on this idea that you just always had to do things right. And if you're going to make a mistake, then you probably just better not do it at all. And perfectionism can create the victim mindset, because then you really can't be a forward moving person if you can't be forgiven. But we know that Christ forgives 70 times 7, and you can be forgiven for all of your mistakes, and there's not 3 strikes, and you don't need to worry about perfectionism. You can step out of the thing that binds you down with that definition of perfectionism. So I changed my mindset to acceptance of self and others, no matter our foibles and flaws. This has taken me a long time to figure out how to pull out of that perfectionistic attitude to acceptance. So I'm no longer a perfectionistic victim. So if that's been a problem for you, I get you. But acceptance is the key, to just accept you where you are as well as other people. And then you can't be a victim because you're accepting what you are. And so you're taking accountability. Perfectionists react strongly to criticism and blame others for their feelings of rejection. They may be critical and judgmental of others in order to make themselves feel more equal or better. So that's definitely not going to create an empowered feeling if you have the feelings of needing to be better than somebody else. So here's some perfectionism advice from Ashley Hansen. 1. Give yourself some gray area to live life. 2. Feel the fear and do it anyway. 3. Don't compare. 4. Discover your spiritual gifts. We all have them. 5. Increase self-compassion. 6. Focus on positive, learn from the negative, and allow failing. Reevaluate your impossible standards, so it's okay to welcome miracles. That was 7. 8. Cut out toxic perfectionism, reinforcing the sources. So just don't even go there. Don't go to where it's going to be toxic and not good for you. 9. Know your worth. We'll talk much more about that later as well. 10. Focus on grace, which offers salvation from our own persistent self-criticism. Give yourself grace. God does it, and so can you. The more you become, the more irresistible you become. We are not attracted to perfection. We are attracted to authenticity. And that's from my mentor, Jody Moore. So that finishes section 2, stepping out of victimhood. The next section will be people pleasing to self-full. So I'll see you in the next section. Hi, this is Sharella. This is section 3 of Finding Yourself After Overgiving. This is called People Pleasing to Self-Full. People pleasing, by definition, is caring about what others think more than what you or God thinks, breaking the first commandment to love God first and your neighbor as yourself. Put simply, people pleasing is lying. Let's discuss the benefits of people pleasing. Well, when you are just worried about what other people think, you don't have to assert yourself for what you believe. You avoid rejection for being uniquely individual. You are emotionally overly or underconnected. You don't have to truly understand others. You don't have to be truly honest with yourself. You become heartless and numb, which may be exactly where you want to be as a coping technique. So let's talk about how to find the love zone pleasing of all. So first of all, you do need to care enough that you feel excitement or peace about something. So we're going to find the balance of what you're going to care for. If you're only caring about other people, this is the problem. So you need to feel excitement or peace about something, not just worried about if someone else is feeling excitement or peace or whatever they might be feeling. The second piece is to care enough to experience emotions, because if you do get into that place of being numb while you try to just please other people, then you do become more heartless and not feeling. And that isn't nice to give your emotions away to other people. The next piece is to care to agree to the point that you're both pacified. So loving your neighbor as yourself means that you are caring about both of you. If you're continually worried about that someone else needs to be pleased, you are not taking care of yourself. But the best place to be is that everyone's happy, that you are caring about yourself. And that will help other people to also care about you because you're caring about yourself too, which helps you care about them. It's just an awesome circle. The next piece is that you are not caring enough for individual uniqueness. So you want to be able to have enough care for yourself and not care enough what other people think that you can still be true to yourself and just be unique, and that's totally okay. Okay, so it's a little bit of a letting go. Like, I am not going to care enough about what that person thinks so that I can be me because I want to be me. I'm tired of just trying to please them. And then the last piece is to care enough about what others think that you're not a narcissist. So if you're to say, oh, I just don't care what anyone else thinks, well, that could be a bad place to be because we as humans do care about other people and what they think if we are emotionally healthy. So we don't want to get to a point of narcissism. We do want to care enough. So can you see this balance of caring enough about yourself and others instead of just people pleasing and making sure that another person is happy enough? So let's discuss some people pleasing exercises. And I have done all of these and I encourage you to consider, could you do these as well? All right, so the first question is, do I feel? Am I feeling good here or did I just take the easy road out? So when you're doing something with someone else and you're wondering if you're just taking care of their feelings or if you're actually taking care of your feelings too, then you can be on the road to not just people pleasing others. So take a quick mental note. Am I feeling? So then the next question is, where is my focus? So when you're in an interaction with someone else, ask yourself before you respond to someone, is this for them, me, or for God's purposes? So remember the two great commandments. Is my focus on God? Am I loving God with my eyes single to His glory? Is that where I'm putting my focus? And am I loving my neighbor as myself equally? Then next, learn to say no. Practice in low risk situations, then increase the risk. It's actually a little fun. You feel like a toddler for a little while just saying no, no. And then you practice with how to do it a little more agreeably. It's kind of fun though. Forgive yourself for your attempt to blend in and forgive anyone else who taught you numbing or running behaviors. So people pleasing is a taught thing, I believe, especially from your primary caregiver. So forgive yourself and forgive them. It's okay. And then allow yourself emotions. Stop when you start to feel something you usually push away. So if you're in an interaction with someone and all of a sudden you think, oh, I can't go there. Go ahead and go there. Allow it to surface and process that emotion. We'll talk more about that one later. And then express your desires. Just practice. It may be good to let your spouse know, for example, that you don't like country music. Begin to be vocal and expressive about what you really do like. And at first it will be a little frightening, but once you start to do it, then it starts to feel super good. Some more practice against people pleasing. And again, I've done all this. And if you've done it, great. If not, again, I challenge you to try it. Here's the next one. Play an honesty game. See what happens in a conversation when you are honest. Or for more fun, play the opposition, just for the experience, kind of like being in a debate class. Well, let me take the opposite side and see how this works. Am I still okay? Of course, you're still okay, but you're used to just pleasing the other person. Keep in mind that we are different and that's okay. So when you're in an interaction with somebody else and you think, oh boy, I'm different. Well, notice how delightful your differences are. Each person has something magical to lend you. Study the life of Christ. How might Christ-like be misconstrued? For me, I thought that Christ-like meant only caring about what other people thought, just always giving of myself to them. But then you do break that second great commandment to love your neighbor as yourself. So I have read through works such as the New Testament to find out what Christ-like really meant. And Christ died not being a people pleaser. People were not happy with him. So he was not a people pleaser, and that was news to me. Also, notice God's spark in others. Soon you'll recognize God's spark in every person, and you want to please yourself as well as them, and it's a great blessing to be able to be in that place. Okay, here's a fun one. Offend others. You probably won't. Your definition might be off and skewed. But if you offend and you did it with kindness and what you feel was a good spirit, The way they receive you isn't your business. So just practice in low risk situations, offending others, and see how it turns out. You might actually find out that your personality comes out and other people really like that. Not that we're trying to please them, but it's a fun thing to just be who you are and be okay with it. And then turn inward. This may feel wrong and selfish. So just practice it anyway. If you're in an interaction with somebody and you start to turn inward and notice what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, is this okay? Then it's also okay to share that. And it's a weird experience to turn inward and say, this is what I really feel. And I, for so long, have been trying to just do what the other person wants, but now I'm okay with this for me. So there's a scripture in Matthew that says, agree with thine adversary quickly whilst thou art in the way with him. This one really tripped me up for a while. But if you have an opinion, and let's say with your spouse, you let this spouse win every time, you are both not winning. And you'll do things for him to keep him happy that don't keep you happy. And if you consider your spouse the adversary you're agreeing with, that's a problem. Plus, agreeing with the adversary quickly while you are in the way with him, quickly doesn't mean indefinitely. It's initially while you attempt to keep a good spirit. If it's a prolonged attempt, a habit, and a go-to, something needs to change here. So really consider what that means to agree with the adversary quickly and how that doesn't mean to stay in that place of agreement, that you need to be happy too. Another point about marriage and finding yourself. Marriage is the union between man and wife. If the union is severed by you having lost yourself, there's not really a marriage or a coming together. It's a fake ghost you afraid to be you. So if you are not able to be self-full in marriage, then you may just lose yourself. And we don't want to have you losing yourself in marriage. We're going to talk much more about that. A lot more about marriage and how to have the love zone connection that we want to have. So I've often thought about the difference between selfless and selfish. Selfless seems to be a, a, a thing that people are congratulatory, to tell someone else they're selfless seems to be a good thing. But I have found that people who are selfless actually have a lot of shame. They're not actually standing up for themselves, and there is some less love for themselves if they are selfless. You may debate me on this, but think about it. When people are less for themselves, they are not showing a whole lot of self-love. Now, the other end of the spectrum is selfish, and that's where you have pride. And pride, as we've already spoken about, isn't the best because then you're not considering the other person. So selfless is kind of considering yourself so much in a place of shame, and selfish is considering yourself in a place of pride, being better than someone else. Shame is feeling less than someone else, and pride is feeling selfish or more than someone else. But the middle happy ground is confidence, and this is self-full, which again, Christ was. And confidence is a really weird place to be after you've been in a selfish or a selfless place, but it feels really wonderful to feel that confident self-fullness. So the self-full place is full of self-love, self-responsibility, self-accountability, which is one step beyond responsibility because you're taking whatever you're responsible for and making something with it. That's good. Self-care, which we talked about in the first section of this class, and self-compassion, turning things back to yourself with grace and taking care of yourself. So I think it's funny that those who are self-sacrificing get mad at those who are not. And then how is that good for themselves? If they say, I have done this for you, I have sacrificed this for you, and they're getting mad. How is that possibly good if their sacrifice puts them into this negative place? So I encourage you to experiment with this middle ground of self-full. It feels so great. I want to tell you about a lady that I met one time at a retreat. Her name is Trista. And Trista had the three traits that we spoke about in this section that created her self-fullness, but she wasn't always that way. So Trista had been married for several decades and had some grandchildren, and she had been a FedEx driver, and she came to a part in her marriage where she said, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And she told her husband, she gave him an ultimatum and said, I can't be this way anymore. I can't do this. I need to take care of myself. I need to stop people pleasing. I need to do what is going to fill me up. And so she started looking at life differently. And she looked inward and she thought, what do I really want to do? And she started to look into going to massage school to be a massage therapist. And then she started considering her relationships in her life and quit some of the relationships in her life that were not working. And she found a new part of herself that was really all about advocating for women. And so she would have people come into her massage therapist for an appointment. And she said, people would just start talking. The women who come in would just start talking. And she thought, I need to learn how to kind of be a therapist here. So she started to help these ladies. And as she did this, and as she was loving herself while she loved these ladies, she was able to really find herself. And as she spoke to us at this retreat, I couldn't believe that she would ever have been a people pleaser and a selfless or selfish person. She was so full and had such a big presence about her. And we sat in the little living room of the house where we were staying, and she led us through this meditation. And it was this visualization where we imagined the things in our life and the people in our life and some of the things of our past, and then into the present and into the future and how we wanted to be. And I felt so good as I noted these parts of me that she was bringing out. And I thought, wow, I just can't believe that she would have ever not been like this. She was just so full. She was such a good example of being self-full. So then after we were done with this meditation, we said, well, let's go up the canyon on the side-by-sides. And so we were going to go get on our shoes and get a drink and get ready to go up the canyon, these ladies that were at this retreat. And so I was staying in the house next door, which was this was Trista's relative's house. And so I and the other ladies who were staying there went to get our shoes and our drink and a jacket to go up the canyon. And when we got to the front door, we realized it was locked. And so I thought, oh, well, Trista will have a key. So we ran back over to the next house where we'd just been doing the meditation. And Trista said, what? You locked the door? You let it close? And we're like, well, we didn't know it was going to lock when it closed, but surely you have a key. And she said, no, I don't have a key. You weren't supposed to close that door. And we're thinking, oh, no. And the key was with the owners, which was her family who owned the house. And they were 2 or 3 hours away. And we're trying to think of how we could get a key. It would take like till the next day to FedEx a key. And we were trying to think of what we could possibly do. So me and another one of the ladies went around to the back of the house just trying to figure what window could we crawl through, or could we stick our hand somewhere. And we looked down and we saw this little doggy door. It was probably 10 inches by 14 inches maybe. And I'm a small person, but as I looked at that door, I thought, I don't think I can fit into that door. So we went around to the front again, and Trista had come over as well. And she said, oh, there's the doggy door in the back, isn't there? We're like, yeah, but I mean, what can we like stick something up and try to turn on the lock or turn the handle or something? So we went back there, and Trista lays down onto her belly, turns sideways, and scooches in to the doggy door And before we know it, she's unlocked the door and we're putting on our shoes and grabbing our jacket and heading up the canyon. As I was sitting in that side by side, I thought, I did not realize Trista was so small. Trista could fit into that small little space, but she had this huge spirit about her. And I was overwhelmed by how someone could be so present and so full, yet she was just this small framed lady. Such an example Trista was for me of being this kind of person that all of us can be as we find ourselves. So here are some self-full actions, and hopefully these are very familiar to you, but if not, I'm just going to mention it. Prayer, which is our speaking to God, and scriptures, which is His speaking back to us. Visiting places of worship that fill ourselves up. Exercise, healthy food, supplements that help us be healthy. Declarations, what we say to ourselves. Dream boards, what we see and want to become. Our smells, using the senses, which can help us cross the blood-brain barrier and help us to change our thoughts. Serving according to the love pyramid we'll talk about in another class. Decreasing our fear and our unsafety. We'll talk about that also in another class. Keeping in your own energy, not taking on empathetic, overwhelming feelings of other people. Decluttering the space around us so that our mind can be free. Laughter, hobbies, nature, which is an accepting nature in nature. Therapy, there's no shame in therapy. It's helped me a lot in my life. Good music, rejuvenation, friendships, visualizations, meditation and mindfulness, balancing time and efforts, paying attention to the body and what it's telling you. Our body tells the truth. Getaways, retreats, and regrouping, choosing to be happy. And what else? What other things do you do to keep you self-full? And then I would like you to encourage you from this list, plus whatever you come up with, do 3 of these things a day. And if you can do 3 things a day, you're going to find yourself in a place of self-fullness, which is an ultimate place to be and will create happiness for us. So that was people-pleasing to self-fullness. The next class will be, the next section is the story of you. So I'll see you in the next section. Hi, I'm Sharella. This is Finding Yourself After Overgiving, Section 4, Story of You. I loved watching Toy Story 1 to Toy Story 4, the movies, with Woody and Bo Peep. Little sweet Bo Peep starts like this. Sweet, seductive, innocent, moldable, complacent in Toy Story 1. By Toy Story 4, little Bo Peep was now, they just called her Bo Peep, individuated, adventurous, resourceful, self-sufficient, yet still friendly. I loved her progression. I love to see how someone can go from losing themselves and just trying to please everyone else to this person who is full of themselves. Go watch it. You'll see the progression. So, my reasons for needing to find myself after depletion. Number 1, I was surviving in numbness and emotional mismanagement. I didn't know what to do with my emotions, and so I just had defaulted to numbness. I was suffering health from anxiety to digestion issues, which I found was coming from my losing myself. Third, letting others take from my martyr example, like showing my kids how to be in a way that I didn't want to be modeling. 4, I was experiencing social anxiety that was debilitating. And 5th, realizing I couldn't co-create with God, fulfilling my mission on earth if I didn't identify with my real self. I think these are some pretty good reasons to try to find yourself again. Here are some myths to finding yourself. It is more blessed to give than to receive. And what I found was that I believe that it's actually very close, that the more you give, the more you will receive. And that it may be more blessed to give than to receive, but only slightly less blessed to receive. Because then you know how to give. And I think it actually balances out, but if we give more, then the weightedness of receiving and giving is actually more equal. So I think it's very okay to receive, which is part of finding yourself. Another myth, it's selfish to do what it takes to be or find yourself. Others will suffer. If I am true to myself and do what it takes to fulfill me, other people will have a problem. And I actually truly believe that. Another myth, fulfilling the expectations of others creates happiness. And as we talked about in people pleasing, if you're continually fulfilling others' expectations, you're not going to be full enough yourself to give. So I had to know that giving back to myself is how you actually give to other people, and then everyone's happy. Another thought, this is just as good as it gets, so just accept it. And I had someone say to me, well, I don't think that God expects you to not be happy now, because my thought was that maybe I'll just be happy in the next life and now I just kind of get by. And this person said, I think God wants us to be happy now, to have joy now. He wants us to all have joy. And so don't wait for that blessed day when finally you'll have joy. And then to lose your life, you'll find it. And we'll talk more about that in this section. Also, to be Christ-like means to be selfless. And we talked about that in the last section as well, that Christ-like is not to be selfless, but to be self-full. So what have you heard and believed about giving yourself away? And why has that myth served you? So why would God want us to self-define? Well, here are my reasons. To fulfill your purpose to its highest potential. To have the Spirit, God's Spirit, to be with you, your spirit. To live fully so others benefit from your self-fullness. To learn true joy. To be an instrument in the hands of God for yourself and for others. So what are your experiences with losing yourself, and what does your found look like? Sometimes it's even hard to know that you've lost yourself, because if something isn't there, how do you even know that it's missing? So what does your found look like? Or even the beginnings of your found? So here are some of the things I did to rediscover myself. I learned empowering techniques. I recognized deception. I learned let go and surrender tools. I cared most of God's opinion. I discontinued some of my unhealthy relationships. I reached out for support. I eased up and reprioritized. I expressed opinions. I found a passion project that fed me and also served others. Recognized and mastered thoughts. We'll talk a lot more about that in other classes. Discarded the image of the used up, exhausted me. I determined push forward times that actually served me. Took time and space as I needed. I discovered self-compassion for myself. Recognized resentment and bitterness for what it was and how it was serving me. Learned from exhaustion. I earned my own money. Sacrificed good for better. Rediscovered my inner voice, which I probably had as a teenager, but I just started to totally ignore it and neglect it until it was like an unused appendage that I had to learn how to use again and trust. And then began to speak from my heart, to bridge the gap between my logical thoughts that would ruminate and loop, and from the feelings of my heart that spoke truth. Then I read this great book by Tara Brach named Radical Acceptance. And she gave this concept that if you can accept yourself in the now, you can always accept what is happening now and know that God always loves you in the now, and that your now can be your treasure. I think I had either lived in the past of what I have been and what I'd done wrong, and then I would also look into the future of what I could be, but I wasn't really satisfied right now. But if you're happy right now, then your right now in the future will be right now, and you'll always be accepting yourself. So Thomas S. Monson said, learn from the past, prepare for the future, but live in the present. And that takes some real mindfulness to be able to be okay right now and accept right now, no matter what is happening or where I think I should be, to love myself right now. So I read a book from Rachel Hollis, and it was Girl Wash Your Face. And she talks about an instance where she wanted to really have a reminder of what she wanted to be and become. And so she wrote on her wrist, mogul. Mogul means an important or a powerful person. So after I read this book, and I thought, well, she really has become a mogul. She is a New York Times best-selling author several times over. She speaks all over the world. She's a millionaire, and she has become that mogul. So I thought, well, what would I want to have tattooed on my inner wrist? And for a little while, I'm glad I didn't tattoo it because mine have changed. For a little while, mine was amazing. And I would look for what was amazing. I would look to find amazing things in my life, how I was amazing, how someone else was amazing. That was my word. And I really feel like that became me. And other people would oftentimes say, you're amazing. And I'm thinking, did they see my invisible little definer on my wrist? So what would yours be? If you were to think about what your one word statement would be, what would it be? And then incorporate it into your being. Here are some possible one word true self statements. Adventurous, beloved, brave, charming, clever, delightful, cheerful, caring, kind, loyal, loving, easygoing, empathetic, fearless, focused, funny, genuine, humble, peaceful, energetic, flexible, forgiving, appreciative, assertive, friendly, accepting, wise, enthusiastic, neat, confident, generous, awesome, talented, wonderful, gentle, lucky, imaginative, trustworthy, sweet, chic, happy, hardworking, optimistic, considerate, upbeat, thoughtful, intelligent, sincere, accepting, artistic, motivating, articulate, dedicated, captivating, brilliant, eloquent, daring, dynamic, resilient, creative. And here are some potential positive true self labels, maybe something you could tattoo on the inside of your wrist. Creator, connector, leader, friend, diplomat, giver, organizer, comedian, guide, genius, mastermind, performer, crafter, champion, nurturer, go-getter, persister, hero, composer, artist, teacher, architect, inventor, lover, healer, thinker, responder, whisperer, promoter, cutie, enchantress, woman of God. So now let's go on to the 10-word true self statement. And with this statement, you come up with 10 words that you believe identify you or that you hope to identify you. And you probably at first won't believe it, but you still come up with this statement. And pretty soon you will find that you have become this statement. So mine is, I'm a delightful, loving, kind, bold, grateful, wise, intriguing, motivating, creating connector. And I've told myself that for a few years now, every single day. And I feel like I am more this statement than I ever was before. And it feels really good to know that I am this 10-word true self statement. So here are some words. Actually, did we already go through these? Yes, these are the same list of the 10 words that you can become yourself. So come up with a 10-word statement that you can just list off like a sentence and repeat it daily, at least at morning and night. Keep it on your phone, keep it someplace you can see it often until you've got it into your cells. So then one step beyond this is the 5-statement true self paragraph. And these are 5 statements that you want to become you. or that you believe you already are and you just want to be more firm on it. So let's go over some of these statements. These are the possible true self statements, and there's so many, but here's just some examples. I live, breathe, and defend truth. I thrive in abundance. I add value to my and others' lives. I am confident and charismatic. I am a generous giver and an excellent receiver. I act with boldness and courage. I have rich knowledge and experience to share. I influence others to find their truth. I am inspiring and engaging. I am an excellent fill in the blank. I motivate others to fill in the blank. I love fill in the blank. And you come up with those 5 statements and put them somewhere where you'll see them often, maybe your mirror or your phone or by the side of your bed, so that you see them morning and night as well. So what are your 5 true self statements? What you want to be, what you think you already are, that you could become more, and they should inspire you to your very core. So what are yours? And as I said, place these identifiers where you'll read them every day. On your phone, a white marker on your bathroom mirror, by your bedside, by your workstation, and then feel them. What does it feel like to be a queen? What does it feel like to be an excellent giver and a generous receiver? I said that opposite, but you know what I mean. What does it feel like? And then I have kept a Who I Am binder. And in this binder, this is your true self binder. So in here, I put cards that people have given me, notes that people have sent to me. I had a piano student who said, "You're the best piano teacher in the world." Of course, I'm going to put that one in there. Pictures, especially those pictures that you just want to look at all the time because they give you such a good feeling. Quotes that inspire you. Artwork that speaks 1,000 words. Memories that just remind you of how excellent life can be. And I pull this binder out every now and then and just remember what is really me. Sometimes we can get so wrapped up in things outside us, people outside us, and we start to lose who we are. But when you go back to this binder and look and say, oh yeah, this is who I really am, you just can't help but be filled up. So in my Who I Am binder, I have the reminder of my identity, my truth, my love, my own energy. When I open up that binder, that is me at its core. Declarations and self-statements, kind of like we've just talked about. Affirmations with the emotions to match. And pictures along with that too, because pictures speak 1,000 words. Unique worth showcased in a variety of ways. So one year I hope to be able to play in a piano quartet in the 4th of July celebration that the town was holding. And I actually was asked to be in this piano quartet, and we played Stars and Stripes Forever. And I've got a picture in this Who I Am binder, and it makes me so happy to look at this picture and remember how good I felt about playing with such masterful musicians and serving for my town in that way at Independence Day. So we alluded to this earlier about how Christ loses his life to find it, and that it gives us an example of how we should lose our life to find it. And that is, so this is in Matthew chapter 16, verse 25, whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. It's for Christ's sake that we lose our life to be able to find it. I used to think that bringing someone a loaf of bread is how I might lose my life. I might spend all day baking bread for somebody, but in the end, maybe it wasn't even the bread that they enjoyed. Maybe they're gluten intolerant, but maybe just the kind word and the visit meant something to them. And I can find that out through the Spirit that tells me what to do for Christ's sake, not my own idea of what is my sake. So if you can truly lose your life for Christ's sake, you're going to find it because it's going to benefit you as well. So what does it mean to you to lose yourself for Christ's sake? Think about that. What does that mean to you? How can you change that so that it works for you, so that you can be self-full? When you find yourself, you fix all your relationships. When you open yourself, God can use you in a way that makes you shine. When you become uncontrollable to the adversary, you become controllable in a joint plan with God. So remember to review your true self statements daily with emotion that inspires you. Remember to look at your wrist and imagine, what is that word that is fake tattooed on there? I love this quote by Hannah DeTavis that says, much like Michelangelo, who painted thousands of details on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, our Heavenly Father has embedded innumerable divine details in our DNA that compose a stunning picture of who we really are. Who you really are is in the divine details of your DNA. So that is the story of you. What have you written? What will you write? And what will you continue to write about this story of you? Next section will be the fifth section, Be a Creator. And we'll talk about the willow worker. So I will see you in the next section. Hi, this is Sharella. This is section 5 of Finding Yourself After Overgiving, and this is called Be a Creator. Creator. The willow worker. Here is the willow worker. This man is Patrick Doherty, and I learned about his work from visiting the Brigham Young University Museum of Art, where he had a display set up. Here's me with his display in the background. That's in the section of the museum where it was just a huge feat for him and his men to come in and set up his artwork, because it's huge and it's amazing and it's creative. You can kind of see in this rendering, or kind of a shot of trying to show everything involved in trying to get his artwork set up. And we could climb through it, walk around it, and it was just amazing. And I looked into some more of the things that he had done. He's made little houses out of willow with windows and worked them into different settings. And I couldn't help but think, as I wandered through this maze of inspiration, who would think to create these masterpieces from simple willow sticks? And even, how does one make a living doing this? How do you get everyone on board to let you bring your sticks and set them up into a museum of art? Here's some of his work out in the wild, just creating things in the middle of trees. I mean, I was just so astounded by his work. So it made me think about being a creator. So to be a creator, there are several elements that I've thought of, and I know there's more. For sure there's more. But here are the things that I thought of. First of all, you have to have a degree of emotion. And if you have been living outside yourself, if you have lost yourself, you kind of go into a numb place and you don't have emotion to be able to be excited about creating at all. You're just kind of flatlined. So the first thing is emotion. The second thing is dedication. If you're exhausted and burnt out from overgiving, it's really hard to have the dedication to do anything other than what you absolutely have to do, right? So when you get on top of things and you're taking care of yourself and you're doing the things that we've talked about in this class, you can finally get a measure of dedication that says, this is what I'm going to do because I want to do it. The next thing that I believe you need is inner wisdom. And this is, we'll talk more about this in class 5. But this inner wisdom, to someone who is exhausted and burnt out, they pretty much have ignored or never really heard their inner wisdom that tells them this is really something you want to do, or you really don't want to do this thing. So to be creative, to have that energy, you need that inner wisdom that says, go for this thing, whatever that thing is, a huge multitude of ways that you could go for this thing, whatever it is. And your inner wisdom is that guide that says, I think you'd really like this, and stop pushing me down. The next thing is the freedom. And by nature, we are free agents. We have the agency, but we have to accept it and know that it is ours. And we talked about that freedom in the 3 pillars. That when you finally agree and work your life so that you do have that freedom, you can do the things that require and support creativity. The next thing is to have an open mind. And if you've been in trauma at all, which we'll talk about in class 7, your mind is just shut down. And if you're burnt out, there's no way you're going to be thinking above and beyond what you normally are thinking of survival. So an open mind is what allows us to have inspiration and the ideas that allow for creativity. And then experiences. It took me a while to realize that I couldn't just hide out in my bedroom for the rest of my life and have any experiences that were going to help me to be a creator. So I had to get out. I had to get out and have these experiences that are like, oh, I see how you might do this, and your mind gets more open to the possibilities of what you can do. So ultimately, creating stretches your mind and heart and solidifies your divine identity through original and inspired expression. Put simply, to be a creator is to be godlike. God created the earth and everything in it. He created us, and that is a godlike quality that we all can aspire to. So, question for you: what wonderful thing will you create, whether it be in the arts, like the willow worker, your relationships, your connections, leadership? You may be creative in a leadership way. A new skill or a hobby, a new invention, writing, speaking, the list goes on and on. So I want to tell you about the Yellowstone Canadian biker. And this happened a few years ago where my family was going to go camping at Yellowstone. We are going to be spending 4 days at Yellowstone, and so we found a campground and had 3 nights set apart for our staying at this campground. And it was a beautiful little campground, and I was excited. We set up our tents. We were just on the edge of the Yellowstone River flowing right by us. I was pretty excited. So we got everything set up. We started cooking dinner, and then this guy rides up on his bike, and we didn't realize it, but there was another tent site about 20 feet to the side of us. And he got off his motorcycle and started unpacking all of his gear. And I'm thinking, where is he going? And he started to set up his little pup tent, or what they used to call pup tents, about 20 feet away from our tent. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, all right, there's a site right there. And then I started to smell something. I was like, what is that smell? Smoke, like cigarette smoke plus something else. Wasn't sure what else, but it didn't smell good. And then I started to notice that this guy was coughing. And I thought, oh, well, he must, I'm not sure why he's coughing so much. But unfortunately, the coughing didn't stop. It lasted all night long. Just could hear him just hacking. We could call him the Yellowstone Canadian biker hacker because he hacked all night long. And the next morning, well, I don't usually sleep well camping the first night anyway, but I thought, oh, maybe he'll be gone by the next day. So we went to Yellowstone. We had our great adventures. It was really awesome because we went when it was early in the morning so we could see the steam floating off all the water in the various areas because that water was so hot in the geysers and the different pools. So it was really pretty. And I thought, oh, maybe he'll be gone by when we get back. Actually, the first day I maybe didn't even think about that. But when I came back and saw his stuff was still there, I was like, oh no. And so then I noticed that he was carrying a bucket over and it had some liquor or some sort of a bottle sticking out. And I'm thinking, oh no, now we're going to be sleeping next to a drunk hacker 20 feet away from us. So usually I sleep well the second night of camping, but I did not sleep well the second night of camping. He hacked, and I just kept wondering, when's he going to trip over to our tent and land on us? Or who knows what. So I just prayed, please God, please let him leave the next day. I want one last night in this cool camp spot. So we went the next day and visited Old Faithful and had fun with our kids. And we went to one lunch place where there was this big old tour bus. And the tour bus was full of people. And they backed up and they backed too far and backed into a tree. And we heard this huge crack. And my kids are all like, what just happened? We realized that this bus had cracked a tree in Yellowstone. I'm sure there's some sort of a law against that, but that was kind of an interesting thing that stood out that day. So then we went back that night, and I'm praying, please, 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 hope the guy's gone. Sure enough, he's still there. So, a third night. I'm sure I slept better than the first and the second nights, but still, it was not ideal. Well, so the next morning we get up, and I'm thinking, oh man, I wish I could just tell that guy off. Like, I'm just thinking, he hacked all the time. We were nervous. Why did he have to ruin our little family camping trip? So then I'm kind of helping get everything put away from breakfast and everything. And pretty soon I see my husband, and he's talking to the Canadian biker hacker. And I'm thinking, oh, what can he possibly be talking about? And so then before I knew it, they had this map spread out over the top of the front of our Suburban, and they're pointing, and I'm thinking, oh no, what's going on here? Why is he pointing to maps with this guy? And so then the guy talked for a while, and then the guy went over to the restroom area for a little while, and my husband came to me and he said, hey, this guy wants to know if he wants the buckets and other supplies that he's had that he can't carry on his motorcycle as he goes throughout the park. Do we want any of that? I was like, no, we don't want any of that. So then the guy came back, and they exchanged a few more pleasantries, and then all of us packed up, the biker and us, and we were off. And I turned around and waved goodbye to our perfect campsite, except for our neighbor, as we went to head back home. And then my husband told me about this guy. He said, you want to hear the story about this guy? He is from Canada. This is how we found out he's from Canada. And he has been diagnosed with brain cancer, and he's got 3 months to live. And so he told me that he's going to go through and visit all of the national parks that he can possibly visit on his bike. And he included in that bit of information that his wife had left him because he was dying. So he just hopped on his bike and decided to go on all these national parks. So my husband was pointing on the map to some of the best places to go in Zion's National Park and Bryce Canyon that we've been to because we know those parks so well. And I'm like thinking, oh, you're giving away our secrets. But then I also thought, wait, I had a new understanding and a level of compassion for this guy that he was going to be dead in 3 months. And he was making the most of the end of his life, even if that meant going and hacking next to other campers. Because I don't know, I have no idea why he's hacking, but the poor guy is dying. Could I have a little compassion on him? And then I just thought, how would that be to be at the end of your life and you know you're dying? What are you going to do? Are you going to kick back and watch Netflix for the rest of your life? Are you going to hop onto your bike and tour the country until you really can't do it anymore? I felt a whole new level of respect for this man, and just realizing he is his creator. He's not being a victim of his brain cancer and his situation. He is being a creator. He's taken the reins of his life and doing what he wants to do. So I ask you, what is that thing that you're going to do? What are you going to create into your life? The possibilities are endless and limitless. It doesn't have to be that you're a great artist or a musician or baker. The possibilities are endless. Think about the willow worker. That was just amazing, the way he could work willow sticks in his favor to be something beautiful. So, be a creator. That is the end of section 5. The next section will be meeting tenacity and your grid. So I'll see you in the next section 6. This is Sharella. This is section 6 of Finding Yourself After Overgiving, Meeting Tenacity and Your Grid. I think you're going to love this final section. What is your tenacity? Well, I can tell you that when I had found myself lost, so I was lost, I had a few things lacking, and that was perseverance, persistence, and purposefulness, which defines your tenacity. So I didn't really know it was missing until I read in Rachel Hollis's book, Girl Wash Your Face, about writing a letter from your tenacity. So let me read just a bit from this book. She says, "You are enough today as you are. Stop beating yourself up for being on the beginning side of yet, no matter what age you are. Yet is your potential. Yet is a promise. Yet is what keeps you moving forward. Yet is a gift, and you are enough to get to the other side of it. There's a great exercise for if you're doubting whether you can do something. Write a letter to yourself from yourself. More specifically, write from your tenacity, from the part of you that never gave up, from the exact opposite place of your fear. Write from your self-assurance. Write from your heart and your gut and the piece of you who always gets what she sets her mind to." I loved that. I felt so inspired by that, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. So it was really weird for me to access this part of my tenacity. But here is what I started writing to myself, from myself. You don't settle on a relationship, on a job, on whatever you want. You like progress. You can push the impossible despite what anyone says. You don't simply become, you are always becoming. You can place stubborn, rebellious, obstinate, and competitive onto your good list. You are not aloof, soft-spoken, sidestepping, or some of your other, quote, negatives. Don't apologize for extremes of spunky, quirky, calm, mysterious, bold, or direct. Just be them unapologetically. To say the least, I was a little shocked that this was coming out of me, that this was the tenacious side of me that I had been neglecting and ignoring. So I ask you, what does your tenacity say? What does it say about being a victim or a people pleaser or having lost yourself? About self-care, about your unique identity, or about being a creator? So the challenge is to write for 15 minutes from tenacity and see what she says to you. I think you also will be shocked. Now I'm going to shift gears just a titch to another book that I read called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. And she explains it like this. If your whole life is made of one square, and inside that square is relationship, what do you do when that relationship goes sour, or you don't have it anymore, or it's not what you thought it was? What do you do? And I'll tell you how this worked for me. It's not like I suddenly didn't have relationships, but when I was detaching with love and stopping being a victim and taking care of myself and learning to be a creator, I had to know that those who had been in the space of my relationship square were not going to always be supportive of me. They might be hostile. And when I felt like I needed support the most is when I actually didn't really have what I thought I needed for the support. I thought people would be supportive, but when you're finding yourself, usually other people are not exactly on board because you were serving them just fine before. So why should they support you finding yourself and being your own person now? So it was an empty place to be without relationship. So again, they were there in physical form, but emotionally it was not even empty. It was actually kind of a little anti what I would hope for. So life was hard for a few years during this time where I didn't have the relationship that I felt like I needed for support. But remember, I'm finding support of myself. I am no longer being a victim. I am being an empowered person with self-love and a creator mindset. So then Susan Jeffers, this author, talks about having a whole life grid. And then I add centered on Jesus Christ because I believe that the power of Jesus Christ is so strong that you only do in the best of your best favor to put Christ at the center. And when you have a full whole life grid, you have a number of things surrounding you. You have work, your self-care, your leisure, your hobbies, friends, your family, your serving, and your relationship, whatever that might be at that time. If your significant other or children or normal relationships aren't serving you, There are other relationships who will rise up, and I believe that God puts them in your path and allows you to have relationships that you need, that serve you at that time. So if relationship goes away and you have this whole life grid and it doesn't have relationship, your life is still full. You still have these things all around you. And while that box is figuring itself out, you can still live in abundance and hope and enjoyment because you still have these things around you. I think this whole life grid can be said for a lot of things, like as people approach retirement or when a spouse dies or any number of situations where when that relationship is gone, everything is gone. But I have found that your relationship with God first and then with yourself is really meaningful in being able to be okay with whatever is happening with you in that relationship square. So the question that I have for you is, what does your whole life grid look like for you? I had a fun time sitting down and just filling in the squares and saying, okay, first of all, where is the bulk of my time? It had been on relationship. It was that was my only square. Then I started to think, well, where else? If I were to do something, and I actually picked up artistry, painting. I'd never been a painter before, but suddenly I was like, I can actually paint. I found a really good YouTube instructor, and I could actually paint. So when I was painting, I was 100% committed to that square. And I found things about my religion that I was doing just out of obedience, and I wanted to do it out of a true spirit of the law kind of a worship. And I learned how to do that 100% when I was there. And it was fun for me to go through and decide where my commitments had been placed on this grid and where I would like them to be. And I can even see different ways that I could arrange things now, like even putting all of relationships, friends, family relationships in one square, and then dividing up my life how I want it to be allocated differently in the different squares. So your homework is to fill in these squares and figure out, what does your whole life grid look like? So the two parts: write a letter from your tenacity, 15 minutes is all you need to do, and then fill out that whole life grid. That could be very quick, very simple, or it could take you a while to figure it out. But I'm sure that you will figure it out because it's what will this will help you to have that life that you're hoping for, to be able to find yourself, to be able to be what God would have you be, to have purpose in and meaning in the things that you do, and to be living the life that God and you and those who love you know that you can live. So that's the end of section 6. Finding yourself after overgiving is one of the classes in a 12 class series I have, the Love Zone Marriage, about finding yourself. And this finding yourself makes a whole and complete marriage. And that is my goal, is to create a class that helps people to have a marriage worthy of the eternities. So please feel free to take part of those 12 classes as they build on one another to be able to have that marriage worthy of the eternities. So I went to college and got my business degree and always wondered what I would do with business. But my business is marriage, and that is what my goal is, and that's what I feel inspired to do. Looking at my whole life grid, there have been some empty spots, some question marks that I've not known how to fill, and I have finally figured out that God has been inspiring me to fill those squares with helping people with their marriages. So that is what I am doing. So I want to finish up this whole section, the whole class of finding yourself after overgiving, by talking about our dailies. And one time I went to a therapist-led group, and when it came to my turn to speak, I said, I am just not doing that good. I am just not doing very well right now. And the therapist, I thought, she's not going to have any answers for me. What is she going to say back? And she did have an answer. She said, are you doing your dailies? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you doing your exercise? Are you doing the things that you've committed to do that are going to help yourself? And I paused and I thought, nope, I'm not. I am still just trying to take care of everything and everybody else and be in everybody else's business and control and all that kind of stuff that I'd been doing for so many years. So she said, I would like you to commit yourself to those at least 3 things a day that take care of yourself. So I committed to that and I did it. And sure enough, a week later, I was doing much better. And I'd like to go over some of these things that I do regularly that I would encourage you to make regularly as well to be able to help it so you can keep yourself. After you've found yourself, you want to keep yourself. So 3 things that really speak to myself of daily self-care. They can be a number of things, whatever they are that float your boat, that you get excited about when you wake up in the morning. We've kind of talked about some of those things already. So come up with those 3 things that you would like to do every day. They can be very simple. Sometimes, like one of mine is music, that I have to have music in my day. At the end of the day, if I haven't done music, I pull up a YouTube video that I love and just kind of sing along or listen to it. Sometimes I grab out the ukulele, spend 5 minutes doing music. Sometimes I sit down at the piano for 30 minutes and I write a song. So it just depends, but I just make sure I get that in. Daily exercise is another thing. We've already talked about exercise and how important it is, but how many ladies do I talk to who say, oh, no, I don't exercise and I haven't for years? And I'm thinking, do you not realize the benefits of exercise? They are huge. They just change a whole mind frame to be in a better, healthier place. So really consider daily exercise, even if that has to be starting out with 10 minutes or just walking down to the corner and back. Make sure to get daily exercise. I myself love my personal daily meditation and I do it out in nature as much as I can. It is so rejuvenating. I just feel my energy filling back up when I go out and meditate. As far as the whole life grid, personally myself now, I have condensed it because it's been a while since I've filled out the grid and really been thinking about it. I condense it to yin and yang daily. What have I done to move inward, which might be meditation, mindfulness, yoga, whatever it might be? And what have I done to move outward? How have I reached out and done something outward? Yin and yang, have I done that daily? Sometimes I've totally been yin, sometimes I've totally been yang. Every day I have to remind myself to have self-compassion. When I don't get something done and I start to beat myself up, I have to say, wait, turn around, look at yourself, and be kind like you would to someone who you truly love. Daily, I visualize what I want to see, and what I'm hoping, you put in every detail that you can, the visualizing what you want your life to be like. You don't want to focus on what you don't want it to be like. You don't want to be stuck in the negative. You want to visualize what you want to see and then expect miracles. Expect it to go beyond what you've even thought of. Then we will talk about this more in class 7, I believe, and that's mastering thoughts. I do that every night. That's an important thing for me, to be on top of my thoughts daily. Several times a week, I make sure I get in creating, because creating, again, is that God seed action that we can take to be able to not be a victim and to move forward. My 10-word statement, I used to say it every day, several times a day, and now I say it several times a week just to remind myself. I kind of retired from the 5-statement true self statement, because it was, again, a lot of words, but the 10-word statement I'm able to regularly do all the time. But the 5-sentence paragraph has been good to reestablish that part of you. Another thing that I do regularly is practice willingness, and that is to do something new, to go outside your comfort zone, to go into a business you've never gone in before just to see what they have, to talk to someone that you normally wouldn't talk to, maybe at the park, just because it's new and different, being willing to do that. And then another thing is regular surrender, check-ins with God to say, am I giving you what I need? And am I doing what's mine? Back and forth. I call it kind of like a tango. I check in and say, okay, am I on track? And he'll say, hey, you're doing good. Keep doing your thing. Or I'll say, God, I need help. I'm surrendering this to you. And he's saying, I got it. Or nope, you got it. I'm giving you the strength. It's our tango that we do. So also, I regularly, several times a week, will serve other people, but now it's totally on my terms and by my choice. Not when I feel forced, not when I think I should, not when the external motivation is based upon something that is prideful or controlling or trying to prove something. So I do serve other people, but it's in my ballpark now, which I love. I take an adventure once a week. When you look for an adventure once a week, you will find an adventure. So I just put it out there. I'm going to have an adventure, and I always find one, and they're great. And I'm always like, I can't believe I'm doing this today. They're so fun. Okay, so then weekly, I have found that for my personality, weekly is the best way for me to nurture friendships and reaching out to people that I just may not normally, some of my family, brothers and sisters. Once a week, I make sure I reach out to family and friends. I weekly reach out to my boundary buddy because I have just found boundaries are hard to institute, but if you have someone who also who's working on it too and you can report to each other, you're going to make sure you get in your boundary at least for the week. And so if I haven't got it done, I have to say, okay, what do I have to push for a boundary? What are my kids doing that I need to enforce? What is my husband doing? What are people in my life insisting I do? And how am I going to set up that boundary? Which is really helpful. Every week or two, I study the life of Christ. I mean, I immerse myself in the scriptures daily, but I intentionally study the life of Christ so I can know who to emulate every week or two. I tap into Tenacity every few weeks because she helps me know why I'm doing something. And when I start to kind of fall off and not do the things that I hope to be doing, I say, wait, where's Tenacity? What would Tenacity tell me to do? And she's more fiery and push forward and she gets me going. So I tap into her and she's like, yeah, you can do this next thing. I'm like, yeah, right on. I take a regular month or two solo getaways. I just need to get away. I just need to have something different. And I always come back so much refreshed. And when I don't have those solo getaways, I can start to tell. I start to just go down into that pit of just, yeah, leave me alone. I have to have those getaways. I look into the Who I Am binder once every month or two. It's not, I don't think of it all the time, but when I do and I open up that Who I Am binder, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I love. This is who I am. I love my Who I Am binder. I am on lookout for experiences continually. We're here on earth to have experiences, and I am going to take advantage of them. Again, it's like adventure. When you look for the experiences, they will show up. Even if they seem like they're bad experiences, there is good laced within them. So it's just finding that. Let any of these things on this list overwhelm me? Never. If it starts to become overwhelming, I totally back off and say, I don't have to do that today. Even if it's exercise, I'm like, I can walk around my yard for 15 minutes and that's going to be good enough. But everything else, it can just fall away for today. If you allow yourself that just letting it fall away for today, tomorrow you're probably going to come back and say, oh, I'm totally fine. I'm good. So if it becomes overwhelming, I just totally back off. Some things I completely give up if I need to and readjust. And then progressively, I find myself on a higher level of being, which is what we're here for, is to progress. However, I for sure make sure that I am okay with who I am right now and the choices that I'm making and what I'm doing right now. I am just totally in acceptance of how I am, but always knowing there's a higher level that I can attain for. And it's always a great thing to do these things on this list. I encourage you to come up with your list of sorts that works for you so that you can find yourself after overgiving and keep yourself and be what you and God and others would have you be. So I hope to see you in the other classes.